If you love liberty, declare your independence by signing the Shire Society Declaration at shiresociety.com.
Recognizes Darryl Perry. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Darryl Perry, CEO of Liberty Lobbyist LLC. And I'm the complete opposite of the lobbyist that Representative Silver warned you about. I'm actually in support of this bill, or constitutional amendment. As you know, the New Hampshire legislature used to meet biennially, then it was changed to annually, and that's actually been a trend across the country. Right now there are only 4 states that meet every 2 years, those being Montana, Nevada, North Dakota, and Texas. There's another handful of states where there's a set number of days that get divided evenly, or not necessarily evenly, but just divided between the 2 years, those being Minnesota, North Carolina, Tennessee, and our neighbor to the left of us, Vermont. Political scientists William Keefe and Maurice O'Gould, and you guys can actually find this on the National Council for State Legislators websites. They have pros and cons to annual versus biennial, and I'm just going to read you the pros for biennial. They say that biennial sessions constitute a safeguard against unseemly legislative action. Yearly meetings will contribute to legislative harassment of administrators and their agencies. The interval between sessions, and this is what I find to be very important, can be put to good use by extending the time for study committees. Right now, a lot of times, study committee gets created, goes into effect in, say, June or July, you've got to have a report by November. By meeting every 2 years instead of every year, you can then have more time to actually study, come up with good ideas to hopefully repeal some bad laws. The biennial session also affords you more time to connect to your constituents, find out what the constituents actually want, instead of session, 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 introduce bills, session, session, re-election. Allows you to actually, touch base with your constituents. And annual sessions inevitably lead to spiraling legislative costs that have previously been mentioned, not just for the governments, but also for you, because travel, going to meetings, etc. So I would urge this committee and the full House to vote OTP and allow the voters to decide if they want you guys to meet every year or every 2 years.
That's it?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for testimony. Are there any questions from members of the committee?
Does he have written testimony?
From what you read, did you have written testimony or?
I can send you guys an email, but I did not prepare copies of my notes.
No worries. Okay, thank you. No questions? All right. Thank you.
And Darryl Perry, please. Thank you for your testimony.
I will be very brief, seeing as how we're about 20 minutes behind schedule. And again, I will email my notes here. And I don't know if any of the members of the committee have read the report prepared pursuant to RSA 659-77 regarding the election held in Derry that was made by the appointed moderator, or rather monitor, Eugene Van Loan. However, on page 2 of that, about midway through his part 2, he concluded that at a polling place, which is already in RSA 653-43, that at the polling place was interpreted to mean within the building. So it seems to me that this seems to be duplicitous of what's already illegal. What I would recommend, though, is, although I'm opposed to this version of the bill, I would recommend maybe a study committee so that you could look at 218 and 253 in conjunction with one another, and maybe just do a rewrite of the first 2 sections of 659-43.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Perry? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Attorney Edwards, thank you. Darryl Perry.
Thank you again, Darryl Perry, CEO of Liberty Lobbyist LLC. And most of you may remember that I was here testifying against HB 1503 last year that amended this section of statute. And what wound up happening with that, it did not pass as a standalone measure. There were other things added to it that basically nobody was going to vote against. So we got stuck with HB 1503 being added to the statute. Now again, I refer to the report from the Dairy Monitor, the Dairy Election Monitor, not a newspaper titled the Dairy Monitor, where he says, in consultation with the election officials and the Secretary of State, it was concluded that the critical determinant of whether voters entering the building should be confronted and told to remove or cover up campaign logos such as a hat, t-shirt, lapel, etc., was whether or not it was being worn, quote, to influence the action of the voter, which is wording in the statute. He concluded if a voter is wearing it into the polling place, votes, and leaves, that voter should not be told, cover up your button, hat, shirt, etc. But if they stand inside the polling place and point very noticeably at their shirt, trying to influence the action of a voter, then that becomes an issue. But I agree with former Representative McGuire that 659.43 1 and 2 definitely need to be rewritten and possibly reviewed altogether. But I do support HB 253, and I'll take any questions.
Questions from committee members. Representative Gay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What is your opinion about wearing a sweatshirt that has the candidate's picture on it rather large?
I have no problem with people wearing t-shirts or sweatshirts or buttons or lapels. And I don't know how detailed the minutes are from the hearing on 1503.
I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to get this in the minutes.
Flailing of arms. But you may recall, at least those of you that were on the committee last year, may recall that I specified other states that have similar legislation. They specify how large something must be. So, my lapel pin here of Bitcoin Not Bombs, could this be construed to support someone that is friendly towards Bitcoin? How large does something have to be? How small? And then a lot of this is very subjective. One person might think that it's intended to influence somebody else, and then somebody else looks at it and has no clue what the intent of the button is. So I think that for the sake of clarity and ease, strike the word wear, and I would also be good with striking the word article of clothing, although I guess someone could stand right outside of the marker that says no electioneering past this point, passing out t-shirts. So you could distribute articles of clothing, so I'm not going to necessarily take a position one way or the other on the word article of clothing, but striking the word wear is definitely something that needs to be done.
Thank you. Questions from committee members. Representative Harrington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you also go along with the, trying to make this less ambiguous, intended to influence the action of the voter? Because that's obviously, it can be an argumented point. If we're going to ban these various things, just say, don't bring them in the building and leave them. If you want to wear a t-shirt, we don't care whether you're trying to influence somebody or not, you can go ahead and wear that. But you're not going to bring in cards, handbills, placards, et cetera, and leave it there. Do you think that that needs to be closed down so that it's just an absolute prohibition, or would we leave intended to influence the action of the voter, which is a subjective decision?
I think you do need to leave in intended to influence, because what happens if someone takes it, they've jotted down notes of this is how I want to vote, and they inadvertently leave it in the polling place. They intended to take it with them, throw it in the garbage can, but they accidentally left it. That's totally different than someone who walks in with a stack of palm cards and places one in each voting booth. So you need to have intent. Almost every other statute that creates a penalty, there is a requirement that there's an intent to violate. So if you remove intent, then somebody that is inadvertently leaving their note of vote for so-and-so would wind up being penalized, and I think you would just see an overflow of court cases, and it would clog the courts.
Thank you.
Now, if the intention is to clog up the courts, then go right
Moving
ahead.
on. Other questions from representatives? Seeing none, thank you for your
Thank you.
testimony, Mr. Perry.
CEO of Liberty Lobby LLC. There was a question earlier about how difficult is it to take an electronic document and convert it to something that can be put up on a website. Well, if you use OpenOffice, or it's been rebranded as LibreOffice, there's actually an export to PDF function. What I've noticed a lot of municipalities will do is they'll print the document and then scan the document to a PDF and then upload the scanned PDF, and that does create more work. But when you export to PDF, it takes seconds, and then adding it to the website takes maybe 5 minutes, maybe, and that's assuming that you have a large PDF and it takes a little bit of time to upload on a slow internet connection. There was also questions about the calendars. There's ways that you can embed calendars onto a website using something like Google Calendar. The previous speaker from the Municipal Association said that minutes have to be available. Yes, in bigger towns they're available generally Monday through Friday from 8 to 4:30 when most people are at work. In some smaller towns, I know there's some towns near me where their offices are open on maybe Tuesday from 3 to 5 and Wednesday from 6 to some other time, and it's very sporadic. So yes, minutes are available if you are able to get out of work in the middle of the day to go get that, or you decide you want to skip supper to go to the office. Miss Katie mentioned last year removing the provision from some of the election laws about or printed in a newspaper of general circulation. And unfortunately, I believe Senator Gray, Senator Gray is right here. Hopefully he can help refresh my memory. I believe one of the questions was, what exactly defines newspaper of general circulation in some of the towns that don't have their own newspaper? So some of the suburbs of Concord, is the Concord Monitor the newspaper of general circulation? Or should they go with, some sort of shopper thing that gets mailed to every person in the county? And the speaker, I forget his name, but he spoke on behalf of himself. He did point out that yes, there are two clauses here on the posting. So it's shall be posted in two places, one of which currently it says may be the website if it exists, comma, or. So if you don't want to post in the town hall and post office, which I think is the general procedure now, then you can just put it in the newspaper and hope that it's the one of general circulation. So I would not be against striking the provision that even mentions the newspaper of general circulation. And then there was also a question about some of the burden, and I do see a small burden on municipalities in that if this goes through, does it only apply to minutes of meetings that happen after this takes effect, or would somebody have to go prior, and there's a lot of towns that date back to 17 something, do they have to go and scan all of those prior minutes and then post on the website? So that's the only possible burden that I could see. But I think that this is a very good bill, and hopefully it does apply to this meeting right now, because that would make it a lot easier for me when I'm researching various legislation, instead of having to email the clerk and say, hey, can you email me the meeting minutes of this prior meeting? Nope, we don't have it, it's in the Legislative Services Office, and then contact them. Well, you have to come in here because we don't have PDFs of anything. So this would definitely make things a lot easier for people that want to know what is going on. And I'll take any questions.
Being no questions, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have
We'd like to invite you to visit freekeene.com. FreeKeene.com features audio, video, and blogs chronicling the transition to a voluntary society. FreeKeene.com also has comments and discussion forums so you can be heard. FreeKeene.com.
I should be in Keene, New Hampshire with the Free Staters.